Hey, I'm James Carr. I was paired with CJ Angrisani, and we were paired together because we both were interested in sports, and in particular NBA basketball. We took possibly an interesting or different approach than most teams, which was we um, decided we would both run with our ideas, and then at the end choose the best model. And obviously CJ's won, so we're going to be talking about his model mostly today. I did want to quickly go over the model I was trying to fit and why it failed. So my goal was to get as much data as I could from NBA.com. I wanted play-by-play data, so like here's who's on the floor at the time, here's how many rebounds and whatever they got, here's what they were shooting from three, et cetera, et cetera. And I was going to plug that in and try to, create an algorithm to predict game outcomes. So I thought the hardest part was going to be getting the data, which I did do. However, in the end, I had so many variables that I couldn't fit a model that was, you know, that didn't have crazy variance and was predictive in any sort of real way. So in this case, for sure, the simpler model won. And so we're going to talk about a really cool simple model that CJ built. The purpose of that model was, with the NBA season being on hiatus, what would happen if we were to just kind of take where things stood at the end and simulate it out and see who would win, and especially who would win the championship. So the data came from basketballreference.com, and it's essentially a list of all the games that were played this season that were actually played and had scores. So you'd have your home team scored 100 points, your away team scored 90. You did that for every team, assign them an ID, and then we use that to give each team kind of an offensive and defensive rating. We then use those offensive and defensive ratings to power the model. So the models were two Poisson likelihoods. And basically, like I said, you'd plug in the offensive defensive ratings and you would plug it in and just see for each team into each Poisson model. And then you'd see who scored the most points. The person who scored the most, or team that scored the most points won the game, obviously. And then you would do that for a best out of 7 series. And then, that team, whoever got to 4 first, would go on to the next, and then you do the other series, and so on and so on until you got to the NBA championship, and then you would do it for the NBA championship. So the results after all that, the East, West, and finals were simulated, and the Milwaukee Bucks were the clear and away favorites. They crushed the competition. In a distant second were the Lakers, but they were 4 times less likely, according to our models, to have won. So just to look at a couple things about it, right here you have on the left a scatter plot of those offensive and defensive ratings. So we don't want to go over all of them, but a couple of the interesting ones. Number 15 up there in the yellow, that's the Bucks, which makes sense. They have a very strong offensive rating. You can tell it's according to the beta, a little bit better than a .05. And then the defensive rating is also in a top echelon defensive rating. And that's not surprising. They're the best team in the NBA right now. And then over on the left is the number 2 red. That is the Lakers, who again came in second. They have a very good defensive rating, but not quite as strong of an offensive rating. And then for me, near and dear to my heart, our local Hornets, with a terrible offensive rating. Just really funny in general. And then lastly here, over on the right, these are kind of the results. It was run many thousands of times, and you can see here that the Bucks won quite a bit more than anybody else. I think most interesting, besides how bad the Bucks crushed everybody, is one, how poorly the Rockets showed in this model. The Rockets are not exactly a bad team, and they, have zero. They hardly won at all. And then lastly, the Toronto Raptors just hanging around just like last year, and not a very high likelihood of winning according to the model, but they didn't have a high chance last year either, and they pulled it off. So cool to see. Anyway, I hope we don't have any sports, so I hope this was at least entertaining, and thanks for letting us present it to you.